Hello and welcome back. For about 100 years, I've been doing annual performance reviews, which have not gone well. They don't improve performance, and in some ways, I think they actually impede it. So I've been looking for a replacement process, and we found it. Let me show you what it looks like in terms of the original setup. And it's going to use a lot of Socratic open-ended questions. So here we go. Walter, how are you?
Hey, very good.
It's great to see you. Thanks for letting me drop in. I know we just spoke last week, and I asked you to think about what you think the 5 primary core competencies are that you should be evaluated on as a professional in your position. And you sent me those 5 core competencies. You and I then discussed, put them in order. I agreed completely with what they were and the sequence that you selected. So what we did is determine what should be the basis of performance feedback and what if we made it routine. So I had asked earlier of Walter, how often would you like to hear from me? And Walter said on the core competencies feedback.
Well, Peyton, when you stimulated me to be thinking about those core competencies, I really got to thinking about it. And I really just integrated that with a lot of things. And, that list that I gave you, I don't know that I've made that much progress yet, but I'm really looking forward to having these regular meetings with you so that we can kind of check in. And I can see, it's nice to have a second person take a look at how I'm coming and maybe make some course corrections as we go.
Fantastic. And you know how much better that is to be able to be in a dialogue with Walter about what he considers to be the essence of his position. And you know what? His first list of 5 didn't completely jive with mine. Yet the more I reflected on it, the more I recognized that he had really hit it. Walter knows his job better than I know his job. And I'm trusting him on this. And so here in our first routine performance return, I will begin again with questions. So Walter, on your 5 core competencies list, you put the first as being communication with your team in terms of their understanding your expectations. How are you doing with that?
That helped me realize I'm just not a solo act. That the success of the whole team is going to be based on how we all work together. And I go, oh, I've not been doing all that good of a job with that lately. I need to just really reach out to the other people in my team and have that communication dialogue going on, because I'm learning a lot from them. Instead of trying to do it all myself and thinking I have all the right answers, they're coming up with some really great stuff.
Walter, you've always been just a tremendous individual contributor. And that was one of the challenges that you identified when you took over a team, is that now we're talking about distributed responsibility and teamwork. And you identified one particular person, Bronco, as being kind of tough. And we talked about one particular method of approaching Bronco, which was to ask him questions instead of give him statements. How has that worked for you?
Well, it was interesting because when we had those more open-ended questions, a lot of the things I'd heard from other people about Bronco, they weren't true.
Wow.
I got a chance to meet with him and talk with him directly, and he's not such a bad guy after all.
Now that's remarkable, because I've heard the same thing. So that's incredible. You're close enough to him, and by being open and showing unconditional positive respect, the first essential behavior of the courageous leader of character, you've been able to do fact-finding and find truth instead of rumor.
You heard about other people through the grapevine or however, and a lot of times it's the negative side of things. But by just claiming who he was as a person, all of those negative things didn't have the power that they did before.
Thanks so much, Walter. One of the learnings that we get from this is that if I ask Walter what he needs and wants feedback on, and how often he wants to hear it, we're going to end up with a rubric that looks kind of like this. That he's going to hear from me, based on my observations of him, on core competencies probably about once every 2 weeks. You know what that means? By the end of Q1, at the beginning of this initiative, Walter would be able to write his own performance evaluation as if it were written by Peyton, by me. At the end of 6 months, his certainty about where he stands with core competencies and where he stands with me is going to be crystal clear. And we are going to use so much open dialogue that one of the other consequences is that he, Walter, will begin using the same routine performance return. Say, what are your core competencies? How often would you like to hear feedback on it? Once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month? That is so much better than everything stacked up for once a year. The other thing that happens is there's a relationship. It's around work. It's around essence of business. It's around supporting each other and encouraging each other so we can be successful. So that, in a nutshell, routine performance returns is the first courageous communication tool. Think about using it. Think about using open-ended questions to ask the people in your life, what should we really be talking about? How often would you like to hear from me about it? And of course, what that means is, as a leader of character, I have to be on the floor enough. I have to be sufficiently engaged with my people, my colleagues, to give them feedback on the core competencies. So that is RPR, routine performance returns. Think about using it.